The Berserker Armor is my favorite power-up in all the manga, not just because it's cool, I mean look at Guts though, but because it makes perfect sense across the board. Manga power-ups more often than not feel like the character didn't really earn it, or maybe they just won't fit. But in Berserk's Berserker Armor's case, it's the perfect device for a character like Guts. It forces him to actually need help, it forces him to face the darkness, and it forces him to head into each fight at the risk of losing himself, not just physically, but mentally. That is the cost of this amazing power-up, one that doesn't even really make him overpowered. Well, debatably overpowered. The armor isn't just there for a power-up though, it actually is brilliant story-wise. Not only does it bring Guts closer to an essential ally, but it serves as a roadblock to tell you where the story is currently at. And through getting the armor, well, this roadblock in the story is overcome. In the way it's a perfect power-up, it's also a perfect story device. And that is why I love it so much. But before we can explain the actual introduction and explain the Berserker Armor, I gotta give you a lot of context. It's one of those situations where everything really comes together in the end. So for a second, please bear with me. The Berserker Armor is introduced during the Millennium Falcon Empire arc, soon after Guts and Casca begin their travels alongside their newfound allies. Here, it's pretty essential I point out where Guts is at. At this point, Guts is extremely worn down by not only the journey he's on, but himself. He struggles with his beast of darkness and mental well-being, and so he's very quick to accept allies and help. This is what we're heading into this introduction with. It's around this time where the group is surrounded by trolls, and all of a sudden they're saved by a witch. The small witch demands they be quiet, revealing they're surrounded by numerous trolls. She demands they come close and crouch, her whirring a circle around them. No matter what, they cannot leave it. Puck reveals this as magic, Farney's surprised as another elf pops up. Her indeed repeating, the girl is a witch and she's using magic. The girl is casting a spell to protect them, and with that, it's complete. The force of a lock of hair enough to send the trolls away. This little witch is Schierke, and while they don't learn her name just yet, she notes Guts and Casca to be strange, before leaving as fast as she came. Soon enough, Guts and Co come across a manor in the forest, revealing this is where Schierke and her mistress, or teacher, Flora, reside. And immediately, Flora seems to be the answer to tons of Guts' issues. Not only does she offer a moment's rest, something Guts desperately needs at this time, but she's the first person he's met with extensive knowledge on the otherworldly, or as she calls it, the astral realm. Better yet though, she appears to know all about Guts' situation, almost too well. And of course, we will be coming back to this. It's only due to Flora that we enter this introduction to this astral Berserker Armor. Schierke later that night speaks to Flora of fate, basically calling Guts mad for going against Griffith, who might as well be a god. Flora then reveals that it was Griffith who branded Guts. He contested fate and survived the meter. Flora continues on, speaking of fate before saying that Schierke must continue and see the significance of this encounter. In simplest terms, and an idea Schierke continues to repeat through this arc, following and assisting Guts is her fate. She who exists outside of the world's natural order, being a witch, is to assist someone who is resisting that natural order, Guts. She's unsure about this, and that's continuously mentioned throughout this arc as she steadily watches Guts. Trust me, this is also very important and we'll soon come back to it. And like that, Flora has set up everything for this section of the story. She puts the idea of fate into Schierke's head, a big element of this armor's existence and reveal, and it just getting to Guts. But not only that, she's written in a way to tell us that the astral world is about to become a very big part of Berserk, and we're about to dive in headfirst into it. Things are no longer going to be so physical in Berserk, we're gonna go straight into the astral realm. Hence, some astral armor, the Berserker Armor, is probably going to be needed. This needs to be proved to Guts, that it's no longer just a journey of protecting a woman and slaying a certain man. The journey is going to be magical, it is going to have even stronger otherworldly threats, and things are going to be very unexplainable. But not only that, it needs to be shown to us, so we too can see that. which is exactly why Flora goes ahead and sends them all on a mission. Flora assembles them all on a quest. She helped them, they can help her student out on her mission, and so everyone is granted magical talismans and tools. Everyone but Guts. He turns his down, which is a very subtle and clever way to tell us he'll get his own power-up later. The group then goes about their way on their mission, but for a second we follow Flora back inside. Her speaking to some huge figure. They asked her a favor. Was it for someone's sake? Pity for a fellow sufferer? Or are they using Guts? Obviously it's Skull Knight. He reveals himself as Flora worries if he still has a heart. Him responding that even if he doesn't do it, Guts is also a factor guided by the law of causality. Flora listens before stating, God bestows upon us fate. The fate called encounters. It was no coincidence this group assembled at once, not to mention right here specifically before both of them. This enforces that big fate theme even harder. It makes it clear that these two have an idea involving Guts, but even if Guts is to refuse this idea, fate will guide him towards it. And the proof is him being here. Fate has already guided him their way. The group in Schierke then defeat the trolls, but it's not over, as the creatures took Casca and Farnese back to their den, leading everyone inside to save them and Guts staying back in the astral area to buy time. Here's where the power of astral threats is shown to Guts and us. A moment that tells us why Guts desperately needs a power-up. Guts' brain begins to bleed. Somehow, this moment is familiar. He frantically checks his pouch. The Baylet, it's changed. A mere second feels like years as the pool of blood shifts. In this instant, everyone can feel the sensation of the cave changing. They're already in a dark, deep realm, yet something threatens to dismantle even that. Guts questions what could possibly be happening as the innards in the cave shift, now resembling Slan, a member of the God Hand. The astral world is becoming so prevalent that the God Hand can now manifest themselves. The things Guts fights are only going to get more insane. Though there is no time to talk, Guts jumps in, his fury aimed at the demon. Yet in a second he's underwater, brought up in the demonic woman's arms. The woman taunts him as she holds him and destroys him, shattering his armor and delivering several fatal blows, notably a slash to the chest. Skull Knight then soon reveals himself, confidently standing before the God Hand in this den of ethereal darkness. She then summons every disgusting creature to attack the knight, and like we expect from this resilient king, he gracefully dodges, splits creatures in two with ease, and in the blink of an eye kills everything. Skull Knight then states, the time is at hand, Guts aiming his mechanical arm and firing. Even the God Hand somehow forget about this thing, and of course this doesn't kill her. She holds the spot, calling it hot, wishing for more, begging Guts to take the Dragon Slayer and ram it through her. Guts does exactly that, splitting her stomach, her writhing in pleasure before kissing Guts, all before disappearing and dispersing into a pool of entrails. The cave then begins to enclose onto itself, leaving Skull Knight and a ravaged Guts left stuck. But then, Skull Knight takes his blade, shoves it down his throat, and pulls back a blade wrapped in ethereal energy. Not just that, but one clad in thorns and a Baylet-seeming blade. He calls it the Sword of Actuation, and this ungodly sword destroys the realm by cutting into the void. A large enough strike revealing the deepest layer of the astral world, the void, where once a soul goes, they never return. Skull Knight has found a way to harness this power, leaving Guts speechless. Of course, like that, Guts is brought back before the others, everything is good, they're good to go on their way back to the mansion, yada yada. But this whole scene was of course very important. We receive an example of the threats Guts is going to face in the astral world. He's actually made completely powerless before one, only managing victory because of Skull Knight and well because Slan let him win. Though we get a lot of examples of weapons from the astral realm, more specifically Skull Knight's sword, which is pretty important for us to see, as we're going to be talking about a piece of armor that is all about astral power. We then cut to Flora adding talismans to a piece of armor. She calls it a big job, yet a nostalgic one, all as she looks to Skull Knight. She never thought they'd need to drag this out. Speaking of this armor before them, Skull Knight calls it dangerous. Flora is aware, but that's why it's necessary for the group. He calls it karmic, an object of karma, but she disagrees. People appear to make the same mistakes, but karma isn't a circle, it's a spiral. The group isn't bound to the same paths as them. It is heavily implied that whatever this armor is, Skull Knight and Flora have used it, and considering Skull Knight's state, being this skull guy, its effects probably aren't very good. Skull Knight mentions karma, the idea that if you use this armor, something will certainly happen to you. Yet Flora refuses this. It's not a circle, it's a spiral. The effect will be similar to Guts, but not the same. Just because Guts uses this armor due to fate doesn't mean it will go the same exact way as it did for Skull Knight. Both then notice a presence. The barrier is broken and demons ride in. Flora notes how much she's weakened as Skull Knight jumps out. He lands before the threat. Flora is surprised by this. She is going to die regardless. Skull Knight responds that he wants her death to be at ease. She thanks him. She won't forget this devotion from her old friend. She thinks of Schierke. She wishes she could have seen her smile once more. Switching to the little witch, she walks with the group back to the manor as she reflects on her lingering thought. She cannot tell whether this group is her fate. Yet then Guts falls. They all panic. Guts' physical wounds are healed, but he has wounds on his ethereal body. Left alone, they'll mess him up, in turn reopening his physical wounds. Again, Guts is no longer facing normal threats. It's not just physical wounds now. He now is getting ethereal wounds. We're really building up to the idea that Guts is being ran into a corner. He needs a power-up. It's then things darken. Schierke senses the mansion in peril. Not just her though. Casca's brand is in pain, and Guts' is also bleeding profusely. Apostles have arrived. The mansion is up in flames, and the great big tree is being reduced to ash. Schierke panics as she worries for Flora, while Guts confirms his hunches. Apostles. He cuts one down quick, yet is thrown back just as fast. He shakes as he rises. He can barely stand up straight, but thankfully Skull Knight saves his skin. It's then Grunbeld steps forward, the huge warrior towering over everybody. He states he wishes to fight Guts. He comments on how he's heard of Guts, before stating the mission to attack the witch, an old woman secluded in a forest, is dishonorable, yet he must display his loyalty. But Guts being here means it's worthwhile. Grunbeld lifts his warhammer, slamming the steel down upon Guts' blade to send him barreling back. Guts just barely stumbles back up. The hit was like a battering ram. Even though in human form, he can tell Grunbeld isn't a typical apostle. He tries to strike, incredibly rageful at the demon's mention of the band. Yet Grunbeld blocks and sends Guts to the floor, smashing his sword with his hammer again. Grunbeld acknowledges Guts' sword, but wishes he'd fight back, while Guts is in pain. Even worse, his wounds from before open again. This battle literally is not winnable. As things become dire, Schierke breaks down. She cries knowing her mistress is likely dead. She tries to speak to her telepathically, where somehow the woman in the flames, the boiling heat, speaks, telling her to listen carefully. Get that armor to Guts. As the flames explode and the heat roars, somehow she gets her last wish across. The dark armor must reach Guts. Hurry. She tells her that a dreadful enemy is here. She should have known full well the time is upon them. Schierke calls his death cruel, but Flora states it's due. It's sinful to live beyond the extent of your allowed time. Schierke can't mourn. This isn't an end, but a change in the form of life. The little girl cries out that she'll be alone. She'll miss Flora, the warm sun, their golems. It's all going to burn. It's then an apostle breaks through the wall, Schierke blowing hair to light the demon into flames, allowing Serpico to push it back. With this, she understands everything. This is her mistress's last request. She has no idea if Guts is her fate, but that doesn't matter. The only one who can help him is her. She finally faces the armor, allowing us to see this object a dark aura, a dangerous fetish of great power. And such an introduction to the full thing is perfect. The armor is so scary even School Knight warned against it, and him being here, whether or not for the witch, really hammers this in. Miura has conditioned us to think that School Knight appearing means bad things are sure to happen. He was at the Eclipse, the Tower of Conviction, and recently before Guts faced Slan. We are given every hint this body of dark armor is bad news. School Knight is just even more proof. Yet what choice are we given but to want Guts to get this armor? Everything hints the God Hand can now easily appear in the real world if they desire. While their forms aren't as clear as Griffith's, it would seem they can at least appear as well, and with them, a sea of otherworldly are becoming prevalent. There should be no doubt in your mind, a power-up is needed. One way or the other, Guts needs to become stronger as his wounds become greater. Even surrounded by new friends and warm people, Guts will face insurpassable mountains. Presently, this is proved as he's smashed down by Grunbeld, the giant warrior stomping over him. Guts is weak to him. He no longer resembles the black swordsman who killed countless and faced Zod. School Knight and Zod already are clashing. Grunbeld envies this. Again, Guts is weak. He kicks him away and charges his cannon, firing with full force at a Guts unable to dodge. Yet one of the Garden's golems takes the blow for him, standing up to now oppose Grunbeld. Guts then hears Schierke, telling him to head to the Hollow. She shows him an image of the armor, him instantly noting it to be uneasy. Again, the armor is bad news, clearly, but literally what choice does he have? Grunbeld quickly smashes the golems as Guts stumbles into the Hollow, falling as he makes it through the door. Schierke knows placing him in this devilish armor will endanger his life. She hesitates, but Guts grabs her hand and smiles. Of course Guts is willing to take any risk. He'll do anything to tear apart demonkind and protect his newfound warmth. He's crowned with the armor, shoves Ishidro back, and in the face of this hideous demon, he's a mere silhouette of darkness, yet a darkness of pure carnage. In the second, the demon is torn to shreds, a blood rain covering the forest as Guts stands over its corpse. A demon rises from above to swallow him whole, yet Guts rips it in half in a mere moment. He stands in the wake of it all, the armor appearing as a dark skeleton. It's a premonition of the future. The armor will surround Guts in darkness before it kills him. Schierke hints at this as Ishidro celebrates. The armor isn't as simple as making Guts stronger and healing him, though it's not just her who realizes this. Even demonkind is aware. Grunbeld states Guts moves like someone else entirely even though it's clearly him. Zod then recognizes it, looking to School Knight. Memories. Would he have Guts follow him down the same path into hell? Finally, Guts himself becomes aware of this sinister drawback. It took away his pain. It's as if it was never there. No, it's that the pain simply doesn't matter anymore. There's something far more important, an impulse. From the astral world, something ferocious seeps through. Everything distorts as Guts puts it all together. The ferocity demands Guts yield to it, yield everything to it, yield to the beast of darkness. The armor then shifts, changing its shape to reflect Guts. Rather, reflect his beast of darkness. In a second, he blitzes across the field, landing on Grunbeld and knocking him back. Guts wastes no time slamming in for another blow. Again and again he attacks, breaking Grunbeld's invincible shield. The Apostle tries to strike back as he shudders. No human could possibly move like that. Guts puts his hand to the demon, revealing his cannon and firing, sending Grunbeld backwards and crumbling his defenses. Everyone watches shocked, Schierke stating that if the fight continues, it will be dangerous. It's not that Guts is healed, it's that he feels no pain. He is now inside of the Berserker Armor, a fetish made by dwarves. If a person wears the armor and aligns with its ominous energy, they become a savage. Guts has forgotten about pain and fear in pursuit of violence. It's simple, the armor just made it possible. Guts is surpassing the limits of the human body at the risk of his own life, proved as while he's stronger. The seeps of his armor are deep red, streaked with the blood of the black swordsman. Guts is a man seeped in darkness. That is far too clear to us. Donned with armor that seeks that darkness, well, it's a perfect fit, but a dangerous one. Guts' inner beast of darkness is represented by a wolf. It showcases his darkest feelings of revenge, hatred, and his most savage urges. This being will appear in Guts' worst moments to reflect his consciousness, to show the scales between the dark and light in his mind. While we have seen Guts help Schierke and encourage her, that being an example of his light, we've also seen what the dark does, like him nearly killing Casca at the beginning of this arc. Guts is now wearing that being on the outside. He's made that darkness his power, and with how unstable his mental state has been, well, trusting that darkness can't be the best option. This armor is not only basically eating him alive, but is burning a very dark and risky flame, one that can destroy everything Guts loves. Grunbeld bellows that this is the black swordsman he wanted. He readies his monstrous warhammer again as Guts leaps down with his own strike. He shatters his invincible warhammer like that, all before leaping into the air yet again and cleaving through the apostle's arm. Guts' armor explodes into blood as Grunbeld smiles. Guts is the victor. He is a great warrior as the rumors said, but he has a mission. As an apostle he shall finish him. Grunbeld begins to change, ready to reveal his full-fledged apostle state, that being of a crystal dragon. Everyone is speechless as the crystal dragon Grunbeld towers over everyone. Everyone but Guts, as he jumps into Grunbeld's strike, holding it off, and though his bones break, the berserk swordsman drives his sword into the apostle's chest, making a connection before he's thrown away. He's destroyed Grunbeld's crystal armor. It shouldn't be possible. And yes, by a normal person, this should in fact not be possible. This material is literally the hardest right under diamonds, and we can see that delivering such a blow has destroyed Guts. His limbs are twisted, he can't walk right, and blood is pouring like a waterfall from the armor. Yet it fixes itself, it twists its limbs back into place, it corrects his posture, and it tightens the armor to lose the blood. It's obvious to everyone the armor is destroying Guts. Schierke explaining that it's reinforcing his broken limbs by piercing through his flesh and into his bones. Apparently the previous owner was devoured by the armor in a similar way. I'm thinking of you, Skull Knight, you know I am, and I think it's fair to say, we're meant to think of Skull Knight here. Regardless, this armor is basically animating Guts like a puppet, yet instead of strings, it's fangs that eat his flesh, leaving Schierke panicked. It's all her fault, but then she hears Flora. Deal with it. This is something only a witch can do. Despite Schierke's cries of inexperience, Flora goes on to say she can appreciate the danger of drowning in power. For this reason, she should be able to do something about it. The swordsman, Guts, lost in the turbulence of power, only she can show him the way. And with this, Flora's words about her following Guts start to make a lot of sense. The witch somehow seen this coming. Schierke, with a little encouragement, is now determined to help Guts, beginning a magic circle as she proclaims she'll try. She'll try to reach Guts. Back to him in Grunbeld, the apostle roars before Guts. Not only is it unbelievable Guts could withstand his attacks, but he wounded him. It's then the other apostles wished to join. Okay, never mind, Guts said no, chopping the group to bits in a single second. Another huge apostle comes in next, but Guts jumps around, behind, and on top of him before he can even touch the ground, killing him instantly. He takes a devastating blow from another next. It had to have broke several ribs, yet he counters and kills the beast in a mere second. Again, the armor is actually making Guts push past every limit thought possible. It's unfathomable speed, though his own flesh and blood, and soon his mind, will be the cost. Schierke has ventured into the astral world, all appearing as flames and anger before her. This is the whirlwind of emotion flowing inside the armor. To our horror, she notes something. A typical human being's ego would be shattered right now. Most people would have completely lost it by now. She then finds the beast of darkness burning in flames. The beast is burning Guts' black flame of hatred, almost smiling as it does so. And Guts is inside this thing. Schierke questions if she can even rescue him from such a rage. She could be swept away too. But there's no time to hesitate. Venturing into the Beast of Darkness, the Abyssal Flame, she begins to see memories. First she views Griffith and the band. All of these memories are bright lights. You could say happy memories. But then they're washed away by a thick darkness, the eclipse. Schierke views the sight, becoming not more than a cloud in the sea of nightmare memories. These are the deepest layers of Guts, the driving force behind his hatred, and in turn, the armor. She's washed away, reaching the end, and a talisman. Guts' spirit then appears before her. Flora had placed a talisman to prevent Guts from collapse, but even then it threatens to break. Guts chants hate and darkness. The flame roars as Guts chants it doesn't matter. Schierke rebuttals that it must. A human soul wouldn't be this dark over something that doesn't. He needs to remember the reason he's fighting now. Schierke shows him the fragments of the outside world, his friends on this journey, all before his lover, Casca. She makes one last effort to connect, reminding him of himself and Casca. The armor's demonic jaw opens, revealing a glimpse of Guts' face. At the same time, Grunbeld bellows out a sea of fire. An eye now emerging from the armor as Guts jumps from the flames to kill every demon. Then protecting Serpico and Ishidro before leaping to Farnese and Casca, killing literally every single demon in the area in a single strike. Everyone questions if Guts is in control. The head then removes itself. It is Guts. He's back, though more injured than ever, and a patch of white hair. Grunbeld roars as he outputs another fire blast, yet Guts hears a familiar voice. Against the Apostle's fire, a wall of flames stops it. Flora emerges to stand up to the dragon. She tells Schierke to go, the forest will burn, and now it's time for the small witch to leave the nest. Find her own path. She thanks the young witch for everything as Schierke scrambles. Guts grabs her and carries her away, Flora watching simply stating, now whether she grasps the fate before her is up to her. Farewell, her sunshine. And like that, we're formally introduced to the Berserker Armor, what I say is easily the best power-up in manga, at least what I think is the best. This armor becomes Guts' mainstay in his fight against astral enemies, and as we've seen, it works very well. Though, we've also seen, this power isn't without its drawbacks, the likes of which are insanely deadly. Not only does the armor literally eat him alive, but it feeds on his malice, the darkest parts of him, making him incredibly unstable and uncontrollable. This is an incredible risk for Guts, especially because he just started surrounding himself with people again. Before it wouldn't have mattered, but now it does more than ever. Letting loose a power that could harm his newfound warmth is beyond insane. Though as I've said many times, this appears to be his only option. It's a big part of why this power-up works so well. This entire section of the story is littered with points to say Guts needs a power-up. He literally begins on his last legs. The world only gets deadlier before him. The more he encounters, the worse it gets. We literally saw that with Salon. And finally, everyone else is acquiring astral magical weapons, even Skull Knight. If Guts is gonna keep this up, well, he needs some armor. I really love that none of this feels random. And for the Berserker Armor to make me feel like it's cool to look at, but worried about its existence at the same time, well, I think it's doing its job perfectly. Not to mention all the story stuff around this item. It tells us so much about Skull Knight, pretty much explaining why he looks the way he does. It opens up the astral world and ideas about its power, which does become a pretty big part of Berserk from here on out. And most importantly, it leads to Schierke joining the squad, which, well, she's an amazing addition, so of course, this section is very cool. I think this addition to the story is easily the armor's biggest contribution to Berserk. Using the armor as a device to bring Schierke into and closer to the story is perfect, as her just joining randomly like, say, Ishidro would not work well at all. This little witch had an easier time destroying the trolls than Ishidro and Serpico. For someone clearly more powerful than them to just appear feels insane, and for her to join the group, well, we need a really good reason. The reason is then introduced, fate. it would appear that once Skull Knight and Flora participated in the same journey as Schierke and Guts. A witch and a person wielding the armor. The person goes berserk and the witch draws them back. It doesn't just happen though. Matter of fact, it seems unlikely at first. Guts isn't quick to accept people. His hatred is a hellfire, and Schierke cannot see her fate with him. But over time, witnessing Guts defy fate, and him witnessing her light and strength, their bond grows into an almost perfect deal. A perfect deal that is sealed with Guts getting the Berserker Armor. Everything said, the Berserker Armor and the way it's introduced to the story is perfect. Not to mention, it's cool. I think we have to all agree that it's cool. It makes Guts overpowered against characters who are also overpowered. It has fair drawbacks that make sense and actually make you worry for Guts. As you know, even if he wins a fight, well, he could still be cooked. And it fits perfectly fine as a device into the story, moving everything along with it all still making sense by the end. In my opinion, you really can't say too much about it at the moment to complain. So just let me know what you think. Do you like the Berserker Armor? Was this a good introduction? Or is it just another one of those annoying power-ups? Thank you so much for watching, and I will soon see you in the huge coverage of this arc. It's probably going to be like a 6-hour long video. The script at the time of writing this is like 40,000 words. So yeah, I'll see you hopefully beginning of February when that's done. Mark it on your calendar. Thank you. See you next time.